If you watch my videos, you already know the importance of a comprehensive approach to stress management. If you want your stress management efforts to be effective, it's important that you approach this stress management with a comprehensive, encompassing strategy. But one thing that sometimes gets left out or maybe put on the back burner or sometimes even accidentally forgotten is the concept of identifying your stressors. While life is full of stressors and stress can come at us from a variety of different angles and situations and people, it's important to try to understand as much of the sources of your stress as possible. Does that mean you will be able to successfully identify every single source of your stress? Probably not, but that's okay. The goal here is to have a good handle of what is stressing you out the most. That means if you can identify that maybe your job brings the most stress to your life, period, end of story, then you know that the bulk of your focus may have to be on your job, whether that means changing jobs, whether that means changing your response to your job, which could include changing your perception of your job experience. Whatever that may mean, it's so important to have a good grasp of what is bringing this stress to your life. What is the source of the stress in your life? Now, as I already said, there will be more than one source of stress in your life because that's part of our reality. That's real for everybody. There's not just one thing that stresses you out, chances are anyway. Maybe you're one of those few lucky people where you only have one or two sources of stress, and that's fine. And even if it's one or two sources of stress, those still require your attention. But the point I'm making here is this: if you understand what's stressing you out, then you have that much more information, that much more knowledge to work with in terms of dealing with that source of stress properly. So let's say that one of the sources of your daily stressors is your commute to work. It could be that you figure out that that particular route, even though it might be the shortest route, it may be the most direct route, is also the busiest route, or the route that often has delays due to car accidents, or who knows what else the case may be. You may have to figure out a different way to get to work. And while theoretically that may not be the most efficient or most direct or shortest or quickest way to get there, it may prove to be a less stressful way to commute to work in the morning. So I hope that you're seeing that these little things, seemingly little things, can have a big impact when you're trying to manage the stress in your life. So let's have another example. Let's say if you go to a certain restaurant, this will be a very simplistic example, but it will demonstrate the point that you can then apply to many different situations. Let's say that you go to a certain restaurant, and every time you go, either the food that comes out is wrong, or it's not as good as you would like it to be, or you feel like you were overcharged, or maybe you've gotten sick after eating there more than once. What would be the logical thing to do in terms of you experiencing that restaurant? Well, the most logical thing to do would be to stop going to that restaurant, right? To change the behavior, change your experience in that sense. So whether we're talking literally about a restaurant that's stressing you out every time you go there, or some other source of stress in your life, the minute you have that understanding, you gain a whole new level of power in terms of properly managing your stress, because now you know where the source of that stress is, and now you can do something about it. But maybe the source of stress that you identify isn't as simple as a restaurant that you can just stop going to. You can just stop frequenting that place. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's your boss. And you may not be in a situation where you can just quit your job tomorrow, which is the reality for most people. It may take a different approach on your part in order to learn how to not allow that stressor to have as much of an impact on you moving forward. It's something that will take time and effort on your part. It's something that will take some learning on your part. You may have to do something new. You may have to figure out a new way of perceiving the situation or the person who is stressing you out. You may have to learn how to essentially ignore or not allow them to have that power over you. You may have to do something like maybe seek out some therapy to help you process what's happening at work, to help you process your relationship with that person and how to better deal with them so that they're not stressing you out so much. So that simply means that you will have something new to work at, to work on, so that you will then regain a way of handling that particular stressor, that you will decrease or maybe even eliminate that source of stress in your life. And considering that there are many different sources of stress in life, eliminating them one at a time is still helpful, because it's forward movement towards better stress management. Maybe it's a matter of a family member. And who out there doesn't have at least one family member that maybe is stressing them out? Whether it's only when you see them during those family functions, or whether it's a family member that stresses you out whether or not you see them, because of whatever is going on, whatever you hear, whatever the interactions are, whatever their behaviors are causing for the rest of the family, whatever the case may be. There are many of you out there who can identify with this. And, you know, in many situations, you could change a job, you could move, you could get rid of friends or acquaintances who don't help you out in terms of who stress you out. But family is forever, and it's a little more difficult to figure it out, only in the sense that you may not even identify them as a stressor, because you think, well, family's family, they're forever, there's nothing I can do about it. But there are things you can do about it, just like you can do things about a job that you may not be able to leave and a boss that you may not be able to leave. So too, you can do things in terms of your interactions with the person, your perception of the person and their behaviors, so that they have less of an effect on you in terms of stressing you out. So it's so important to make sure that you are looking at the sources of your stress and identifying the sources of your stress. Maybe a source of your stress is your pet. Maybe they have destructive behavior, or maybe you have, let's say, a dog that is difficult to walk. Well, if that's stressing you out, that's relatively simple to fix, because you could get help from someone who is a professional in terms of animal behavior, who could help you with properly training that pet so that they are not destructive, or so that they're not difficult to walk, and things of that nature. So again, Understanding where the stress is coming from is often the first step in figuring out how to deal with that stressor so that it's either eliminated altogether, that's the ideal, or so that it's reduced to such a degree that it's not as big a deal anymore. And while ideally it would be great if we could eliminate all stress from our lives altogether, it's not realistic. There will always be something that is stressing us out, whether it's big or small, every now and then or more frequently. But the responsibility is ours to do what we can to properly manage the stress in our lives. And that means understanding the sources of stress in our lives. And like I said at the beginning of this video, you may not identify every single source of stress in your life, but it's important to get the major ones so that you can have a better understanding of how to best approach that stressor so that you can either eliminate it altogether or reduce it to such degree that it doesn't make such a big difference in stressing you out anymore. And if you pay attention to everything I've said in this video, the responsibility is yours. Yes, sometimes we can get rid of people or jobs or situations that are the source of stress, and sometimes that's just what it is, what it takes. But a better approach, or maybe an approach that will serve you for a lifetime, I should say, rather than a situational approach, is learning how to deal with that particular type of stressor so that the next time a similar stressor enters the picture, enters your life, you already have the tools and knowledge how to use those tools so that you can better handle that stressor as you move forward. Because guess what? Just because you quit a job that may be stressing you out, or just because you move from a neighborhood that is stressing you out, doesn't mean that the next one will not be just as stressful or maybe even more stressful. So it's important to learn those tools so that you can take care of all kinds of situations as you move forward. If you would like to learn more about comprehensive stress management, check out the link below.